Hello there, and thanks for joining me today. You could be watching this either right now live on Facebook, or you could be watching it on the catch-up on YouTube, or you could also be watching it on the website in all the different groups that we have. But today, in today's Facebook Live, I wanted to talk to you about becoming multi-orgasmic. Okay, now that is a really good topic to brighten up your Monday. To talk about the idea of becoming multi-orgasmic. So, this is what I'm going to be talking about in Facebook Live. And the reason for doing this is because I'm going to be doing some workshops which I'd really love you to come along to. So, I only need to look at my piece of paper here. I'm going to be in Palm Springs on April the 28th and 29th, and I'm planning to be in Ashville on May the 12th and 13th, and London I'm going to be with you on June the 30th and July the 1st, and Oakland Bay Area I'm going to be with you later this year, October the 28th and 29th. So there's everything I'm talking about today. If you want to come and try this, come along to one of my weekend workshops, and I'm going to be really happy to invite you to come and experience some of the things that I'm talking about today. Now, if you watch all the way this through, I have got a free gift for you. Okay, I've got a really beautiful free gift that you're going to enjoy, and it's going to be an incentive. By the end of our time together, you're going to be aching to come along to one of my weekend workshops, because I can quite literally revolutionize your life just by the idea of learning about becoming multi-orgasmic. So we are in a good zone. So let me start this off just by talking about orgasm. And did you know that statistically, men ejaculate within 15 minutes of sexual activity? That's that men typically ejaculate within 15 minutes of sexual activity. And, if you're kind of experiencing more conventional sex, you kind of meet somebody, could be a long-term partner, could be somebody you've known for 10 minutes off Grindr, it doesn't matter. But if you kind of look, there's kind of the arousal. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I felt when I'm having more traditional sex that it kind of just follows a bit of a script, or what I call like a little bit of a porn script. And that's not a bad thing. It just kind of follows that pattern, and it's kind of a little bit predictable. And my normal idea of a porn film script is, you kind of look at someone, maybe start with a bit of kissing, then maybe you got your hand down the trousers, maybe one of you gets a blowjob, maybe both of you get a blowjob, then it's time for one of you to fuck the other one, and then that's it, job done. And I don't know about you, but this was purely for research purposes, I have to tell you, purely research purposes. But if I had ever been on a Grindr date, my joke is that I've sometimes spent longer in the car driving to get to the place than actually I was in the expression and in the throes of passion with the person at the time. And it's funny, but I also think there's kind of an uncomfortable truth about, how we experience orgasm, and how we kind of, I don't know about you, I sometimes it's kind of like longing for the sex that I've always wanted, and yet feeling dissatisfied with the experiences I've had. And so the bits I'm going to tell you about today are going to blow your mind a bit. And again, come along to one of my weekend workshops, and we're going to be putting this into practice. So let me just talk a little bit about multiple orgasms. Now, for me, there's kind of two things that actually happen. The first one is when you think about multiple orgasms, there's kind of what I call the physiological or the physical aspect of orgasm. And one set of techniques that you can learn is around being able to train your body physically to kind of control or contract certain muscles so that you have the choice not to ejaculate when that comes, but actually in training certain muscles, I'll explain what this muscle is in a minute, in training certain muscles, okay, you can start to create a space between ejaculation and orgasm, and you can kind of start to separate those. And learning to separate those, I have to tell you, is a really good thing. The second thing for me then about multiple orgasms is what I call energy. So when people talk to me about the idea of a multiple orgasm, they just think it's like coming and coming and coming and coming. And if you can do that and you're very, very lucky, brilliant, crack on. I can't help you. I can't help you. Time for you to finish this Facebook Live now. But if you're still online, and I can see there's a number of you still here, carry on watching as I kind of talk a little bit more. So I think for me there's kind of two aspects to getting, for me multiple orgasm is more of a state for me rather than the experience of multiple orgasms. Although they kind of interact and contradict each other a little bit. But sort of like a multiple orgasm, there's physical exercises and practices that you can learn. It's a bit like going to the gym, kind of a sex gym, where you're learning about how to work different muscles and how to practice with different muscles. So I've got my first free gift for you. I'm going to give you this one for free. What I want you to do over the next week, okay, is, you know that muscle that you squeeze when you're having a pee, okay? Just try squeezing that now. No one's going to know apart from you and me that you're doing that, okay? And just give it a little squeeze and a let go, and a squeeze and a let go, and a squeeze and a let go, and just kind of do that, okay? Now, the idea is what you're doing as a man is you're actually starting to strengthen your pelvic muscles and your pelvic floor, or it's actually your prostate muscle, okay? Actually, and so what I'm wanting you to do is just squeeze and let go, okay? And if you do this sort of like 100 times, okay, several times during the day, okay, and then after a week, and I want you to kind of message me, add a comment on after this, after a week of doing this exercise of 100, we call them PC pump, so I want you to do that kind of 100 times a day. You could be sat in the car, you could be on the bus, you could be in a really boring business meeting, and here you are pumping your PC muscle. No one's going to know anything about it. And what you'll find is that when you go into your sexual energy, whether that's on your own with a really good movie, or whether that's with a friend or friends, who cares? But my point is that with all that kind of muscle kind of exercises, it starts to strengthen that. And that's one of the things that you can kind of take into what I call a multi-orgasmic state, okay? So try that out over the next week, see how you get on, send me some messages, because I'd love to hear. I've given this exercise to people before, and what they've told me is they've just had really profound results. They've been like, wow, that was really, really good. Now, the second part of becoming multi-orgasmic that I talked about, the first bit was about physical stuff. So that exercise that I've just talked about is a way to start training your body into that state. But the other part that I want to invite you to consider is what I call kind of like the energetic aspect of orgasm. And you might be like, Jason, what do you mean by like energetic aspect of orgasm? So for those of you that are watching, have ever done any work with me, I talk about your sexual energy, I talk about your heart energy, and I talk about your spiritual energy. And here I'm predominantly talking about your sexual energy. And what I'm talking about is the relationship that you have with that. You see, I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm only sharing this between you, me, and Facebook Live, so it's between us. No one will know. So for me, there's something about being in your sexual energy and not having really met or been part of the experience of the sex. And you may then come or ejaculate and it's like, okay, that didn't kind of even touch the surface. Now, for me, one of the things about becoming multi-orgasmic is about how you meet, how you bring yourself to the sensations that you're feeling in your body, and how you allow yourself to really take part in that, to really kind of meet that. And there's three ways that I talk about doing that, and that's breath, and that's sound, and that's movement. Now, being English, okay, we are not in England very good at making sexual sounds. But I have to tell you, everybody, everywhere I've met, is actually not very good at making sexual sounds. Because actually, for me as gay men, it's never been okay for us to, one, be gay, and secondly, to even make a whimper about any form of pleasure that we're receiving. And so there needs to be some kind of like reprogramming, or some kind of reprogramming, or kind of rethinking about, okay, your relationship with your sex, with your pleasure. And the point I would say here is that what I always say is, if it's happening in your sex, it's happening in your life. And if it's happening in your life, then it's happening in your sex. And they're kind of intertwined. And so for me, the more that you can build a relationship with your sex, that you can feel okay in your pleasure, that you can feel okay having a much wider experience of your sex, then that for me plays out in your day-to-day life. It's like if you're feeling more expanded in the sex that you're having, and it kind of then carries on to feeling more expanded, more bigger, as it were, in your day-to-day life. So I think part of the becoming multi-orgasmic is exploring the relationship that you have with your sex, that you have with your sexual energy, and your want, your willingness to kind of really start engaging with that, to really start being present. And this is where I talk about making sound, being able to, because when you make sound about an experience that you're having in your body, you're then conscious of that experience that's happening in your body. So I've got practice number 2 for you, okay, to do this week, so that you can kind of start to get into that. So what I want you to do is, when you're at home, whether you're on your own, as I said, with a movie, with a friend, with friends, I don't care. But the point I'm trying to make here is that when you're in your sexual energy, what I want you to do is I want you to start practice kind of really breathing into it. It's like, really kind of being in contact with it. And if you're stroking your cock or somebody else's, I want you to start bringing noise to that. I want you to kind of start bringing an sound, a real . And then I want you to start listening, okay, to the sensations that are happening in your body. And I want you to imagine that with each breath, you're kind of just making it a little bit bigger than you did before. And what you can do is, as you're kind of doing that breath and you're doing that stimulation, and you're kind of bringing in breath and sound, what you're able to do is to almost start entering into an almost orgasmic type, hypnotic, meditative type state. And what you can start to experience over time is the sensation of actually expanding your orgasmic state to kind of the whole of your body. So typically when we have sex, okay, I think one of the biggest complaints about sex is that it's just all down in your cock, it's just all down in your genitals, it's just all down there, and it's not that amazing or that satisfying. It's just kind of like, yeah. Whereas if you start to bring in breath, and you start to bring in sound, and you start to bring in like this awareness of kind of expanding that over your body, I promise you, okay, I've been teaching this stuff for over 10 years, I promise you it's going to feel much, much more expanded. And there's then going to be a much greater sense of pleasure, and a much greater sense of joy, and a feeling of feeling bigger, more wider, more broader, more satisfied. Yeah, what I'm talking about here is the feeling of being more satisfied. But there's one question here I've got for you. Who is responsible, okay, for your sexual pleasure? Is it your partner? Is it how good that film was that you watched? And, okay, I'm going to give you the short version here because no one can talk back. But the short version is that you are responsible. Really, sometimes when, we've had sex with someone else, we're like, oh God, they were a bit rubbish or that was a bit crap. And my point is there's something about taking responsibility for your own pleasure and working through anything that gets in the way. Okay, working through anything that gets in the way of not enjoying yourself. So what I'm what I'm saying here is that you're responsible for your sexual pleasure and you're responsible for working through anything that gets in the way of that. And actually, once you I can actually feel quite empowering, actually, that you can kind of take responsibility for that. It's like it's down to me. It doesn't really matter about anybody else. It's like I'm able to learn techniques, focus on things, expand things. It's me. It's nobody else that's going to be able to do that for me. Now, there's another reason why you would really like to do this, okay? And this is where I talk about the more spiritual aspects of Tantra. So, stay with me for a second. Typically, if you have some stimulation with yourself, with a movie, with a friend, with friends, I don't care. But imagine that you're being stimulated. And as I said, men typically ejaculate within 15 minutes of sexual activity. So if you imagine this as a little chart, okay? A little mathematical chart. In terms of that feeling of arousal, it's kind of, I made that noise and it's over within 15 minutes and it's all gone. Okay. But imagine that you could make a choice at the 14-minute period, go, do you know something? I'm not going to come. I'm just going to breathe this up through my body. I'm going to give it some sound. I'm going to give it some sound, breathe it through. I'm going to listen and be aware of all the sensations that are going on in my body. And then I'm going to go back in again, okay? And you go back in again. And what happens is the arousal state starts to increase again. And if you keep repeating this over a prolonged period of time, you then start getting experiences of like your body shaking, of breathing, maybe screaming. Not me. You might be screaming. You're just checking no one on here knows me. You could be screaming. But what happens is it really starts to put a lot of fuel on the fire. But as I said, bringing in your breath, bringing in sound, really taking yourself up to the edge and listening and being with the sensations that are happening. Now, what happens at that time is you keep going. You could be doing this for an hour, 2 hours, whatever happens is that energy just starts to build up, and honestly you'll find yourself almost out of control, almost screaming in sheer orgasmic delight. And you'd think that was enough, wouldn't you? You'd really think that was enough. But I've got more for you. You see, as Tantra is a spiritual practice, Tantra is trying to show you, firstly, what ecstasy looks like. And for me, multi-orgasmic and ecstasy kind of sit together very well. And what happens is that's like the fuel of the fire that then takes you into what I call a very divine state of bliss. And for me, the divine state of bliss is what the enlightened masters are looking for. It's what the yogis are looking for. It's what the Zen Buddhists are looking for. And they're all doing their different spiritual practices to get to this state of, I'm tingling because in my meditation this morning, I really just felt, I'm just with this state of bliss. And as I talk about it to you and as I convey this to you, it's like I want to share how this is possible. And yeah, this morning in my meditation, just completely with a beautiful state of bliss. And the good news is that you can get there through your sexual energy, through your cock. And so there's something for me about learning to become multi-orgasmic One, because it feels really good. And the other thing I've got here, whilst I'm on this, the other thing I've got here, why didn't I know this before? Why am I only knowing this at 45 or around that age? Why wasn't I taught this at school or as a young adult? Imagine what you could do if you knew this stuff so much younger. Sorry, I sidetracked. I'm back with you. So what I'm saying is that, you know, in the first early stages around becoming multi-orgasmic, it's about learning about your body. It's about learning certain techniques and practicing those. It's about starting to build a relationship with your body. And then as you start to get more comfortable making sound, you start expanding that energy, you're doing that PC pump exercise that I gave to you, and you're really starting to take that energy up. At the peak of that experience, there's some later techniques, which if you come to my weekend workshops, I'm going to show you. But there's some later techniques that kind of uses that sexual energy you've built up as kind of like the rocket fuel to open you to states of, I kind of lose words here, to kind of states of bliss that you are very likely not to have experienced before, or if you're a seasoned meditator, it's the same state of bliss that you get in the silence that's at the peak of your sexual experience. And I've talked before about what I call the eye of the storm. And the eye of the storm is this state of bliss that I'm talking about. And so I think, you know, for me, one of the reasons why you'd want to become multi-orgasmic is because it would like improve everything we've been doing so far. That's like reason number one. But for those of you that are interested in Tantra as a spiritual journey, it's actually this that can really kind of give you the rocket fuel to, I guess it's like, I mean, for me, Tantra is the fast track, okay? If you ever come on and do much longer work with me and Ingo, our diploma series, we really take you through your paces. It's a real, it's like spiritual kind of development, rocket style, because we just, it's intense. And have a chat. If any of you know any of my diploma students, have a chat with them about their experiences. It's kind of full on. Well, this is the kind of like the prelude to that. And you know what I'm teaching you here is basically how to develop that relationship with your body, how to develop that relationship with yourself, and then learning how to use that energy that take you to blissful states that are way beyond even a state of orgasm, or it is a state of orgasm. You see, one of the things I learned about orgasm is firstly, we've been so sold out as to what we experience typically, but when you start learning to be able to control it, when you start learning techniques to control your orgasm and to direct it where you feel to, it really can open up the whole universe for you. And it can really open you to states of bliss that are so profound that just leave you, I'm struggling to find words, so deeply moved. So deeply moved. Okay, so we're starting to come towards the end of my Facebook Live session with you. Now, as I said, today I've been talking about how to ideas around multiple orgasm. I've given you a couple of techniques to try at home, but bring yourself to one of my multi-orgasmic weekend workshops. Let me just recap that for you. I'm going to be in Palm Springs on April the 28th and 29th. I'm going to be in Ashville on May the 12th and 13th. London, I'm going to be with you on June the 30th and the 1st of July. And Oakland, Bay Area, I'm going to be with you later on this year, October the 27th and 28th. And I would really love you to come to one of my weekend workshops. And I'm going to give you an incentive to make it even better. So if you book one of my weekend workshops in April, so this this month, if you book a weekend workshop in April, I'm going to give you a copy of my Davey Wavey program that I did, which is made up of 3 videos featuring Davey Wavey and Chris Harder, and 3 of tantric audio clips featuring me with Davey Wavey being interviewed and talking about Tantra. And there's some really good juicy stuff in there that you'd like. That currently retails for $69, so I'm able to give you that as a free gift, as a way of welcoming you to one of my weekend workshops. So let me just finish and recap for you. So today I talked about what it is to be multi-orgasmic. I talked about the kind of physiological action of becoming multi-orgasmic, and I talked about the energetic aspect as well. And I talked about how just if you do this PC pump exercise for a week, let me know how you get on. And then I talked about how to then bring that technique, bring breath and sound to your masturbation, wanking, jerking, your self-pleasuring, whether that's with you, with a movie, or with a friend or friends or a long-term partner, and kind of start bringing a more consciousness, more awareness to what you're doing, and also start the practice of breathing it through your body and bringing sound to that. And start to feel that going through your body. And as I said, if you come along to one of my weekend workshops, I'm going to show you how to take that forward into achieving really deep, profound states of bliss. So listen, I've really enjoyed being with you today, yeah, it's been my joy to be with you. I hope you get something out of the Facebook Live. Let me know, put some comments on below, see how you get on, and I hope to see you later this year. Okay, take my love and my blessings with you. Take care, and love showers too, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.